Richard Baker is the former CEO of Boots Alliance, and he took up the role at age 40, one of the youngest CEOs in the UK. Richard ran Boots for over 4 years before it was acquired by KKR, and the first private equity deal of a FTSE 100 company. Richard, prior to that time, worked at Asda, where he was lucky enough to work with Archie Norman, who mentored a number of CEOs, including Alan Leighton, Andy Hornby, and also Justin King. And Richard's going to share his secrets of being a CEO.
Morning, Richard.
Morning.
Yeah, so a number of questions to ask you about the secrets of CEOs. First of all, there's a lot of focus at the moment on sustainability, and sometimes it's a sort of a PR exercise, but other times people are taking it a lot more seriously. How did you address sustainability when you were at Boots, and how did you make sure that that initiative had legs and wasn't just a PR exercise?
Yeah, well, it was very interesting at Boots because Boots is and has always been a company with a long established sense of social responsibility, whether it be towards its employees or towards the environment. So Jesse Boot, the founder of the company, was both an environmentalist, and he was also a philanthropist, and believed very much in looking after his people as assets in the company. So there was a well-ingrained culture. I think the activities do, in a way, fall into the two buckets you described: the real meaty stuff, and then the external face. Yeah. And I think it's both are relevant and real, and they've both become more important. I mean, on the real efficiency, not wasting resources, whether it be energy, or whether it be packaging, or whether it just be effort in a whole bunch of different ways, is just fundamentally important to running a business efficiently and running it well. And particularly as most raw material prices are going up at an alarming rate at the moment, it's never been more important to use as little energy as you can efficiently do, and to waste as few materials as you can, because they've never been as expensive as they are. So on one level, there's an absolute business necessity, if you're going to deliver an efficient P&L, that you're not wasting expensive resources inside the organisation. But secondly, I think the general consumer has never been as aware as they are today of concerns about, will the planet's resources last? And are we using up the world, at the expense of future generations? And so I think that both employees and customers of companies are more concerned than they've ever been that they're doing business with a good company, and a company that really does take a long view about the environment and the world's resources. So I think there's a real hard-edged here and now issue around running the business efficiently and not wasting expensive resources. But secondly, employees and customers have never been as concerned about these issues as they are today, and will over time do more business with companies that have a good social conscience and less with those that don't.
Yeah. Do you think in the future you need to do this just to have a license to operate?
It is. I mean, I think to make it broad sweeping would be unreasonable, because so much of the economy is made up of small companies who perhaps their reputation on social matters will never be well broadcast, and you won't know whether the local window cleaner that you're using recycles his water or whatever. Yeah. But for large public companies or privately owned companies that have a big presence and a big face, I think it really does matter more than ever.
Yeah, I agree. And then clearly your experience of Boots and dealing with KKR, and I think that was the first FTSE 100 private equity transaction.
Yeah.
What are your reflections now about the world of PE, and can PLCs learn from PE?
Yeah, I've long held the view that there will be a convergence between the way public companies and private companies are run on a number of dimensions. When companies are taken private or are run privately, I think one of the differences is there's a much greater focus on cash as opposed to reported profit. And it's interesting, I've watched a lot more public companies talk about EBITDA, for instance, for the first time, which is really a measure of free cash flow, in addition to the reported profits. So in terms of what companies focus on, I think there's a convergence. So whether it be, public companies always used to talk about profit before tax, and private companies talked more about cash generation and EBITDA, and I can see them using each other's language more. I think in employee remuneration, which is one of the big private equity arguments, that they can really incentivize management and drive out better performance because of managers really sharing in the wealth created. Again, I see convergence there, so I can think of examples of public companies now that have got much more aggressive inverted commas, private equity style incentives in place, which usually means a lower base salary. So less bread and butter, but a bigger reward. And I can see public companies certainly taking on more of that thinking. I think balance sheets, again, public companies are looking more carefully at their balance sheets and how can they effectively achieve more from less working capital or capital employed in the business, which is another one of the great private equity strengths. On the other hand, I think private equity is learning that it has to be more transparent, and it's learning good governance practices from the best run public companies. And very interestingly, just 2 weeks ago, I received the first Allianz Boots annual report as a private company as opposed to as a public company. I had a covering letter from Stefano Pacino, who's now the chairman, and a nice personal note. And he said, "You'll be pleased to see, Richard, that we've maintained exactly the same level of reporting transparency as we always did as a public company." So there's an example of private equity coming towards the public. So I see lots of examples of basically the two sectors swapping best practice, if you like, and therefore converging. I think the only final thing to say is the credit crunch, of course, has stopped the traffic flow of private equity activity, because one of their great tricks was to basically take more risk, put more leverage into a company on the balance sheet for higher reward. And at the moment, that debt's not available to lever up the businesses, and therefore they are going to go quiet for a year or so.
Yeah. Richard, on the talent agenda, I know we've had many conversations about this in the past. I have a sense that CEOs now are starting to talk talent a lot more. A lot of CEOs talking about how good their teams are and so on. But I'm not convinced yet that actually there is enough execution and time put in from the CEOs. What's your view on that? And what do you think the best CEOs should be doing in the area of talent?
I think the best CEOs understand that hiring, inspiring and retaining the best people is absolutely critical to their success. Look at Alex Ferguson. His team have just won the Premiership and the Champions League, and one of the big reasons is he's just got the best squad of players. And I don't think it's very different in business. If you've got the best squad of players, you're going to produce better results than most others. The truth is, however, I think it's done with less conviction than it should be, and therefore the processes are not well enough adhered to. And I think the search industry has opportunities for those who really help CEOs to do this work better. And that's about really understanding the context of appointments. What's the company situation, what's the company culture, what is the immediate team into which any new person may be going to work in. So really understanding the circumstances, really thinking very carefully about the sort of people that you recommend may be able to fill the vacancy, testing the brief pretty hard and seeing actually whether the brief is really, really right. And then being a partner to the HR director, the chairman or the CEO in seeing the search process through, and beyond the end of the first day, the person arriving with their new crisp white shirt on and stripy tie, and actually being part of seeing that person succeed through the first 6 months. Because I think one thing that's very true in the current state, you can't afford too many disasters right now either. Hiring mistakes are big mistakes. We've just heard today about Marks & Spencer, who hired a very, very well-regarded guy from Waitrose a year ago and have let him go within a year. That's a big issue because it's such an important part of their business, and now they're going to have a leadership vacuum. So you can't afford to get it wrong. So in the search industry, I don't think it's ever been more relevant that do a really, really good quality job.
And do you think in the search industry that that we need to be more global? Do you think we need to not just place the person but get involved in sort of deeper talent management, and maybe a different style of relationship with the CEO and HR director?
Yes, I mean I see other professional service suppliers to large companies having a deeper relationship, whether it be the audit partner of the auditors who would come and give the CEO a view on how well his finance function is running, or the partner of the advertising agency who provides exactly the same observation on the success of the sales and marketing part of the company. Why should the search firm not be having that deeper, broader relationship with the HR director / CEO in being the professional services advisor in human resources on a broader footing? I'm not sure how much it will affect the remuneration model of search. I still think in the end you'll get paid for the work that you do. But I think the winning companies in search will be those that provide a deeper and broader service than just producing a list of names and persuading people to come to the first interview and leaving it to